Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to all the different parts of the world that are getting to hear the Venture Outfitter Weekly. Excited to have our program connecting into even larger audience. We'll go ahead and bring up the slides and say, welcome to the Venture Outfitter Weekly. Today, we're going to hear from Christia about Beyond the Logo. But before we do that, I'm going to give you a little bit of background about what's been going on. So Venture Outfitter, we're all here together as a community to help each other build out our ventures and things like that. So we'll be talking more about that. In fact, next week I'm going to be talking a lot more about the model because I'm about to give a speech, and I'll tell you about that in a few slides. Thank you to Linda and her team at DualWorks for making it possible. They sponsor our studio, and so if you're looking for co-working space, or you're looking for an office, or even just like a mailbox, especially if you're out of the country and you need something like that, they're really great about taking care of entrepreneurs. Linda is a Venture Forth, which is one of the Tech Ranch programs. She's a Venture Forth 17 grad. We've had 50 cohorts of Venture Forth, and so she's a long timer. So thank you, Linda, for working with us here. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what's been happening. I realized that a lot of times I had a couple of people in the last week say, Kevin, how come you never tell us? I haven't been posting on social media as much recently. So I'll tell you some of the things that have been happening around the Tech Ranch to give a little bit of, more insight about things that are happening, what's going on and stuff like that. We had, along with the Swan Impact Network, which is a angel network based here in Austin, we had the ATX Impact Happy Hour this last week, really successful. It was great to see all of Austin's impact community come together, which includes other incubators, obviously Tech Ranch, because Tech Ranch is one of the sponsors of this event. And about 120 entrepreneurs and different people there. So really great to have that. Followed on, we met with the ambassador of Kazakhstan, which is interesting, right? I mean, everyone knows that a few weeks ago I was in Uzbekistan, and I really want to focus our activities in Central Asia, in Uzbekistan. But what's interesting is I think Central Asia is discovering Austin. And so we received the ambassador and his delegation. Really was interesting, informative. I did not realize that up to like 25% of Exxon's oil is coming from there, as well as, about 10% of Chevron's is coming. And so it's really interesting to see all the different activities that are happening out there in Central Asia. I think the signal that I heard from the ambassador is that Central Asia really wants to connect into the United States, and obviously Austin is part of that. We're also connecting part of our group in Central Europe into Central Asia because there's been some crossovers. I met as well with the Secretary of State of Texas, John B. Scott. A lot of the governmental officials that meet in the United States, I can be pretty critical of, but I really do have good faith in Secretary Scott's background. He seems really committed to Tech Ranch. He was actually working with, this is the official in the state of Texas that's in charge of elections. And I could tell that the office is a little bit stressed because of the elections that were on Tuesday. So this is a meeting last week. And the main thing about it is to say that they have this high degree of confidence in the security of the elections. And, John B. Scott is a Republican, dyed-in-the-wool Republican. It was really comforting to hear that from the person who's running the elections in Texas about his firm belief in what's happening in the process. And I say that because there have been a lot of people in the United States that are trying to detract from the security of our elections. And so, just 2 cents about that. You also notice that he was showing me a beautiful art from Uzbekistan. I have a similar plate to the one that the ambassador from Uzbekistan gave to him, and he was quite proud of it. So it's great to meet. The other thing about it is the Capitol. You can see that the way that the Capitol is set up is exactly how his office at the Secretary of State's office has been the exact same way for the full history of Texas, all the way back to, when I actually don't know when the Capitol was built, but all the way back to the very beginning of the Capitol being built. The University of Texas has launched their space program. In fact, part of what I did was I was at the launch. I got to see some of the different students that were doing their different programs. The rocket that we see is one of the few rockets that's actually making it like a student group. It's got one of the highest flying rockets based on the fuel system that they have. That's what that video is, or the photo off to the right is. But it's exciting that this is happening at the University of Texas. It's actually happening in the engineering school where I graduated. So I was kind of like, as an alumni, I was proud to see where they're taking things. And Tech Ranch will have some ties into that. We've worked with the incubator out of Luleå, Sweden, that's in the northern part of Sweden. That's where the European Space Agency launches their rockets, or one of the places that they launch from. And we also have activities that we've done in Adelaide, Australia, which is where Australia launches its rockets from. So I think that there's some bridging that'll happen around that. We don't have a space expert on our team yet. Right now, I'm the person that has the most knowledge about space, but we are looking for someone that would like to step in that area as either advisor or consultant, or even partner type of organization to step in. I'd like to find specific capability in that space, because space is going to be big. That's supposed to be a joke. Oh, well. And we received Norway's Minister of Education and the Consul of Norway as well, in a delegation that you see off to the left. The thing that's exciting about this is, since Norway has had a lot of activity, Tech Ranch has had a lot of activity. I reported on 3 different projects. The first one was in the upper right, is Tech Ranch worked with the University of Agder to build out a master's in entrepreneurship. And the great thing, that was starting in 2017. The great thing about it is they just launched they just graduated their first group of students. And the thing that's interesting about that is over half of those students immediately launched businesses. The other half are actually working on got really great jobs, and that they were leveraging their entrepreneurial literacy. But really proud of that program. The middle is the Oslo Freedom Forum, which Tech Ranch, along with the city of Austin, participated in that in 2018, 2019 as well. And some of the photos from that, as well as some of the delegations that we continue to stay in contact with. The picture in the middle is actually, we're now connected to the maps.org organization, and that Rick Doblin is presenting. You probably can't see his photo just based on the resolution of the photo, but Rick Doblin is the gentleman who's running maps.org, which is bringing lots of relief to veterans that are facing severe depression and post-traumatic stress disorder. And that came out of going to this event. And the third thing that we were talking about is how Tech Ranch continues to be a bridge, not just to Austin, but between other countries. You'll see the green country is the Czech Republic, the orange country is Norway. And I was as a Texas is born to do, crowing about how we were making connections between those countries. And it kind of surprised the minister, because he's like, hey, Wayne, I thought you guys were in Texas. And I'm like, the Tech Ranch network, because of all of y'all, is everywhere. I'll be speaking next week at the 2022 International Virtual Conference on Innovation, Technology, and Artificial Intelligence. It's interesting, this is in the Middle East. It's a virtual conference, though. I will be speaking about that. And what I'm going to be speaking about is the Austin model of entrepreneurship and how it can solve all the world's problems. And tall tales from a Texan, but these are true. So if you're interested, my specific slot is 8 a.m. on the 17th. There's no cost to be a part of this. Details are on the Tech Ranch events calendar, or you can ask Jello, because he's got even more details. Okay, well, that was a long-winded way of just telling you kind of what's happening around the Tech Ranch. I'd love to get feedback from you guys about, do you want to hear about that sort of stuff? It's like there's so many things. I probably left out 5 other substantial meetings, but ministers and ambassadors are I snuck in there. But each week we're hosting quite a number of delegations, and I see even more than ever before that TechRanch's role is to be kind of the entrepreneur diplomat role of building out this network that then entrepreneurs worldwide can take advantage of connecting around. And so with that, though, I want to introduce Christia Hoffman. Christia, years ago, came to one of the TechRanch campfires with a company that her and a business partner were starting called Mama Lingua, about language acquisition at the early stages in Spanish. And I loved the idea. I loved the idea about how they were training young people in Spanish, or babies even, like at the earlier stage in Spanish. But then, whatever happened with that venture happened. Then she started producing this amazing poetry that she would post online. And I was I always was kind of paying attention to it, because those of you all that know me personally, know that every once in a while I share some of my own poetry, but she shares boldly. She shares boldly in a very vulnerable kind of way, and it's very moving. That being said, there's something about, she also has a company that she helps companies with brand image. And as we bring in other consultants to support the entrepreneurs in the TechRanch network, the idea is let's pull in knowledge, really depth of knowledge, and see what we can learn from them. So today we'll have Christia take us through how to build your brand for growth. And I'm going to hand it off to her and say welcome. Welcome to Christia, and excited to have you here, and excited to share your insight with the rest of the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Thanks, and thank you for that introduction. So I have a presentation that I'm going to go ahead and start that screen share here. As Kevin mentioned, I do have a habit of writing poetry. So I'm going to share some of that here in just a moment, but I wanted to talk about how Kevin and I decided to share this presentation, and thinking about the number of startups and entrepreneurs, businesses that come to the TechRanch community. People are coming at every different stage, new, pivoting, taking off, established, and brands are just like your business. Brands are dynamic by nature, and when you build them really well from the beginning, it's easier to make adjustments and to pivot, turn in new directions as you develop new products and services. So whether you're a solopreneur or late stage startup, building your brand on a solid foundation helps position your business for growth over time by making your brand recognizable and providing a consistent brand experience. And that consistency piece is really important. So in this presentation, I'm going to be speaking about my own experience in part, but I've been focused on the B2C experience, but this is useful and brings clarity and consistency for any model of business. I believe if I can get recognition that you can see the Beyond the Logo slide. Is that there? Yes? That's right. Okay. So this is the poem that I thought I'd start with, and this since TechRanch is changing the world through accelerating entrepreneur success, I thought I'd start with this, which is called Acceleration. And I wrote this while I was working on my startup, Mama Lingua. And so I'll read that for you. Acceleration. Each introduction, a nodal point in learning, a new genius to be understood, heard out, handshaken, part of the centrifuge of acceleration. Gathering up ideas, sorting a shoebox of experiences to weigh against our own, spin down and reflect, adjust, distill into direction that's still a gamble, still a bet, an educated guess, but what isn't? I'd rather risk a little pride, a little pragmatism to know what it is to attempt a new invention. Watch how curiosity comes to light from the most ordinary of concerns. and answers derive from figures no more or less than us together, and a willingness to question if the current solution is best or if discovery lies just ahead. With that, I'll launch into brand. So I began my career as a graphic designer, and I have a love of print and focused my work on publication design, magazine layouts, books, brand standards, brand guides, marketing materials. And I found myself writing, editing copy for all of my clients. So I shifted over time into brand writing. And that gives me a unique understanding and experience with how words and images really play together in media. And as Kevin mentioned, I've also been a startup owner. So I've been through that process of creating a brand, writing pitches, sourcing funding, and going to market. And I know what's involved and how important those brand foundations are. But when we think about brand, most people think logo, and they hear brand and think logo, but the logo is only one part of your brand. That's your visual identity. So with apologies to Margriet, ceci n'est pas un brand. The pieces of a brand are, in fact, what it looks like, the visual identity, what it sounds like, that's your verbal, what I call your verbal identity, and also how it makes people feel. And there are lots of definitions for brand, and I really like this one. I think it sums it up well. A brand is the collection of associations people have about a product or business. So I think, the verbal identity is really one of the hardest pieces for people. We kind of know the process of arriving at a logo. We know what's involved. We hire a designer, work with someone, talk about what we like and the look and feel of something. But beyond a tagline, most people don't think about the verbal identity, how your brand speaks, and really what it has to say. And so that's a piece of the puzzle that I focus on. And in all of my years of experience, I found that one of the greatest challenges people face is that piece exactly. People have a hard time talking about themselves and articulating exactly what they do and why. And that's true of entrepreneurs representing businesses or business owners who have many people around them. So it's especially true at the early stages of business and when you're undergoing a pivot. It can be a particular challenge to articulate exactly what your business does. And that's where I see in my work that the verbal identity piece and what we call foundational brand language really helps position your brand for growth. It gives you that clarity. And I will say I want to give credit to Design Good, which is a branding firm here in Austin. They coined the term foundational brand language. And I've been working with Design Good for about 5 years, and I've helped them get really clear on their high vibe branding method, which they use with all of their clients. So I've helped develop this idea of foundational brand language. And the foundational brand language helps you talk about your business. And it's the essence or distillation of your brand, and it lays the groundwork for all future communications. And a lot of this work, you'll find these same ideas articulated among other branding experts, but this is, I'll refer to it as foundational brand language. So you'll find other terms in use. And the pieces of the foundational brand language are your brand name. So most of us know these pieces. That's the brand names of your business or your products or services. And people think of brand name and brand statement. So that's your statement or your tagline. And your tagline should connect, it should be meaningful for you. But a lot of people skip the brand clarifier part, which is that concise statement that tells your audience exactly what you do. So if you are a brand storyteller like me, brand storyteller and consultant. That's my brand clarifier. Or you are a dentist or a doctor of ophthalmology, whatever it may be that you do or that your business does, that brand clarifier piece is really important. So these three parts are usually kind of in that verbal identity lockup next to your logo. And getting those really clear is an important piece of your foundational brand language. But probably the most important piece is what we call your brand positioning statement. So the brand positioning statement provides clarity about what your brand does, who you do it for, why you're so damn amazing at it, and the outcomes your audience can expect from your products or services. So it's really there to communicate your unique value proposition and differentiators. So the structure of that seemingly simple idea looks something like this. So brand X provides an offering that makes brand X different from its competitors for your ideal customers and audience who have certain needs, because, and the reason customers should use your brand over other brands. And this is something that I want to state is this is internal facing. It's when you create this for your company, it's really about articulating all those pieces of the puzzle and bringing them together in one succinct, distilled statement. So it's about creating a unique niche for your brand in the minds of customers within your category. This information gets sort of translated out once you distill it down. So the brand, to break it down, the brand positioning statement articulates your ideal audience, the challenges and pain points of your audience, your core products or services, your differentiators and unique value proposition, and the results, benefits, and outcomes you provide for your audience. So this is especially important to entrepreneurs and startups when usually in this process when we're going through the process of pitching and having conversations and trying to raise funds, getting really clear on all of these pieces helps communicate your key messages, and it's really important for not just you in those conversations, but anyone on your team. And so you start to you're not only clear about it, but you're very consistent. So here's an example from a company that I'm working with currently, and I did this brand statement just a few weeks ago, and this is a complex one. It's a complex company, and they've already been in operation, but they are pivoting to a new solution, and they really needed to be able to explain what they've been doing and also kind of set themselves up for future growth. So I'm going to go ahead and read this to you. Again, this is an involved one. Often they might be one paragraph or two, but I think through this example, you'll be able to see what the brand positioning does. So Edify harnesses the power of the metaverse to provide leading-edge career training and internships while expanding access to education and pathways to leadership. With a core focus on hospitality, we work with students, schools, and hotels to provide foundational education, upskilling, and reskilling that supports the life cycle of career placement and advancement. Our transformational technology enables us to bring training to remote and historically underserved communities, creating new opportunities for students wherever they live and learn. Our innovative approach combines synchronous and asynchronous delivery of educational course content through extended reality, XR, and Web3 technology. Courses include VR training modules, immersive classrooms, and blockchain credentialing, in addition to live webinars and personalized guidance. To complement our courses, we coordinate international and virtual internships that prepare students to work, advance, and lead within their chosen field. As trusted partners to schools and hotels, we provide customizable courses and just-in-time modules to meet their unique needs, including essential hard and soft skills training. With a heart in Filipino hospitality, we prioritize warm, personalized service through every touch point while we realize our vision for bringing XR-powered career training to new students and industries across the globe. It's a lot of information, but it's that distillation of exactly what the business does, what the brand does. And this message, because it distills down the company's key their unique value propositions and key differentiators, it ensures that anyone who comes into contact with this and who uses this information can then that information is consistent, that it's a way of thinking about the company and understanding what it does and for whom and what makes it different, that anyone in the company can use and go back to when there's if they sort of lose their way or start feeling a little confused about what is it exactly that we're doing here. And then this message is not outward facing, but instead it gets sort of translated across media to different audiences. So you, in the process of brand building, you also talk about the brand personality and then sort of layer that over this. So you might use this exact same information, but in more conversational manner on your website or in your marketing materials. But it all comes back to the same core facts about your business and what you've identified. So I think it's also important to note, going back to this, that it's very different from a mission statement or a vision statement. So a mission statement focuses on an organization's purpose or commitment, and a vision statement provides inspiration and guidance by focusing on what an organization wants to achieve in the future. And by contrast, a brand positioning statement outlines exactly what a company does, for whom, and what makes it different. So in thinking about how this is important also for those brands, businesses working with TechRanch, who are part of the TechRanch community, a powerful, well-articulated brand positioning statement, it's that foundation for telling your story and connecting with your ideal audiences. So that piece about it being an important tool for anyone on your team is also important relative to sales. So whether you're selling B2B or B2C, it provides your team with that consistent language in natural American English, in our case, to really confidently communicate your key marketing and sales messages. So no matter who you're sharing that with, or if you're putting out press releases or having conversations with among your new networks, you're able to keep coming back to this foundational brand language. And that is really what provides, it provides a foundation and helps you build your brand for growth. It is something that you can come back to over time and modify as you pivot. Most brands will come back every once companies are underway, we see them coming back maybe every 2 to 3 years to start to make some branding modifications, and that's often to visual and verbal branding as they find their way, as they find their niche in the marketplace. This really provides that solid foundation for launching your business in the US market and elsewhere. So that is, I will stop my screen share here. And I ran through that quickly, so I wanted to make sure we had time for a question and answer. And also that I am going to share this on the TechRanch community dashboard there, platform. And so that people have it, and that one slide that has the breakdown of Brand X does certain things for certain people, you can use that as a means and method of creating your own brand positioning statement, and use this presentation to work through the process on your own. To give you a little background, typically there's a really involved discovery process first to get at all of this information. So I will sit with someone for multiple hours to go through that background, because again, one of the hardest things is talking about yourself. So going through this process with someone else is usually easier for most people, but a lot of businesses and startups don't have that leeway. They need to do this for themselves. So this kind of information can be really helpful in starting to get clear on those pieces and put them all together in one place, so that you're consistently communicating what you are. And it gives you I think one of the most important pieces of that is that it really gives you confidence in talking about what you do. So you aren't questioning it. And that's true in, this serves, I think a lot of us have been through the process of putting together a pitch deck for funding, that we're constantly tweaking statistics to fit the audience, or pieces of the puzzle to fit whoever it is we're going to be talking to, and setting up that problem solution in different ways. And most of us know what our company is about, and we struggle with articulating it to different audiences. So the brand positioning statement really helps you ensure that language is there in your head, and you can always come back to that, and it helps you with those other pieces of your business development, as you, particularly in pitching and press releases and other areas. So you always have that confidence to communicate your brand value.
That is excellent, because as you're going through the process, I was like, oh wow, that's a really cool template, and it helped me even. There's you mentioned part of I guess what you're calling our brand spotlight in that first part. I'm like, oh, okay, well, we got that part, but we didn't get this part. Oh wow, So I'm sure that we'll I have 3 different questions myself that I want to ask, and then obviously both online as well as in our studio audience, I'm sure we'll have questions. Let me kick off a couple of questions really quick. So tell me more about like this, since you have sensitivity just like I do about this cross-border interactions, right? By the way, Christia joined me recently when the south of France, the region around Marseille, France, actually had a delegation here. She received the delegation with us just a couple of weeks ago. And so I know that you have that eye for detail, understanding multi-cultures and stuff like that. How does the brand travel? Like, do all these elements shift when we're in a different country, or how true do they stay?
No, I think of this as something that's always quite literally the foundation of your business. So if it needs to be translated, that's something that is, I think that's an important piece of the puzzle, ensuring that whatever it is that your brand may work really well, the way in which you articulate something may work really well in one area, and it may be incredibly important to work with someone sort of locally to ensure that the, as we know with language, direct translation often doesn't work, or what you think may resonate may have some cultural background or context that actually is very different from what you think it is. So it becomes really important to actually have those conversations with locals, as it were, to understand whether or not that foundational brand language, everything from your brand name to your clarifier statement, those things that are really outward facing are in fact will resonate with those audiences on the ground in that other area. I think we spoke with some people who were where there were questions around that with regard to their brand, speaking of the French delegation, and finding that we in my case had recommendations for changes to brand language, even a brand name, for something that would really resonate much more readily with the American audience.
I remember that example.
Any direction. Yeah.
Yeah, and that example is like, without disclosing what it is, it's like, it's interesting. The person used English from French but the words, it's kind of like the story of the Chevy Nova, or Nova, the Chevy Nova. Well, in Mexico, that means Nova, which means it doesn't run.
Doesn't go.
Yeah, exactly. So
It's
you have
not,
to,
yeah, yeah,
exactly,
yeah.
you have to be careful, but not, but it sounds like the bones of the brand don't change. It's just maybe some of the translations, like not the literal translation, but the translation into the essence, in the language as it crosses language.
Yes, yeah.
Got it. So another question, you mentioned that part of what the brand statement is about making the, let's say, what makes the brand different?
Mhm.
What makes it different? One of the things that, in Austin, since in Austin, we try to be all, work together and stuff like that. And sometimes when I'm trying to position the Tech Ranch brand, I end up bringing a different brand up to create a contrast. And I'm trying to figure out, how would you actually create that contrast? What makes it different without naming competitors? Could you give us a little bit of example of that? Or is it, let's use competitors to kind of disclose the following thing?
So I mean, you can use competitors, but it is often, instead of that, we really look at the unique process, products, or services. What is it that is unique about about those things in your business, and those differentiators are what set you apart from your competitors. So you either do something in a slightly different way, you solve a problem differently, something about the way you work. I mean, you're hopefully, in order for you to succeed, is different. You're filling a niche in the marketplace, and you're solving a problem that doesn't exist. There's something specific about the way that you do that. So articulating that piece of the puzzle is really, that's the thing that is going to get people's attention. That's usually why you're, having that conversation, putting yourself out there, because you saw that need, and you're filling it with something that is clearly not currently available. I think it's possible to, part of that also may be the idea of brand experience. Someone may be able to buy something else that is similar to your product or service, but there may be other things about what you bring to the experience that is different for them. Maybe it's your customer service. Maybe it's maybe it's actually the visual branding, the logo, the graphic components that make people respond in a different way. And when there's parity, that brand experience piece becomes really important.
Yeah, it's interesting as you're going through that. I'm thinking of some of the words that I've used recently to try to explain Tech Ranch. In my placement of that, we're a really relational brand, whereas the brand that I'm positioning us against in using the word relational is very transactional, right? They're all about the transaction. If you don't have a transaction, well, you can go to hell. And whereas we're relational, we're like, hey, come on in, let me pour you a cup of coffee. It's a little bit different experience. Sometimes I think that it's interesting because I'm sensitized to that specific thing, because sometimes I think we're building the relationship where sometimes the party on the other side is like, hey, let's get ready, let's get to the next transaction. And so I'm sensitive to learning about that. I've recently noticed, especially in going to Uzbekistan, which is a very relational culture, that I'm like, when I saw a shift to let's go ahead and get into business, it was interesting. It's like, it kind of like surprised me a little bit, because I'm used to more of the almost Mexican style. Let's get to know each other, which our brand tries to communicate to. That's a relational brand.
Right. And in fact, I think that is something that, so a piece of this that I didn't include in the presentation is the brand vocabulary. So that's actually part of when I'm working with someone, I pull out, first and foremost, and it usually comes from the words people use themselves to discuss what they do. And it also comes from observation. So if I were developing your core brand vocabulary, relational would be one of those words. And that word would probably find its way into that brand positioning statement because it's a really important piece of the puzzle. And from that, it may also make its way into your onto your website as a, when we get to the part of your homepage that says, what you do, it may say something like, we are, our focus is on relationships, and then give a little more information about how that's an important part of what TechCrunch is, and that is a unique differentiator. You do that differently than all the other other entities here in Silicon Valley or elsewhere, who are working with businesses and at the startup stage or growing beyond that.
Yeah. So, well, that's interesting. So you said you also said something about and just switching gears around. You said having this written down so people don't question it. Like as we're working on presentations for our clients and our prospects and stuff like that. Would you say a little bit more about, I wrote down the words, not questioning it, meaning, and say more about that, because I think that's one of the things that as we're in the cold, especially at the early stage of trying to get something together and just like shaking and just, can we just get the cash flow fire, started so we can warm up a little bit. Oh, wait, like in the wind's pulling me this way, the wind's pulling me this way. Talk more about that, not questioning it thing.
Yeah.
Say more about what you expand on that, if you don't mind.
Right. It's partly the experience of going through the process. When you go through this process of sitting down, whether you're doing it on your own, you're doing it with a consultant like me or branding firm, you're taking this time to break down all of the pieces and have the conversations about your business and really quite literally get it all down on paper. And then it provides an opportunity to really look at it from different perspectives. And then once you get to the point of actually verbalizing that through that brand positioning statement, and looking at it, with certainty, this is what you mean. This is what you are doing. This is your audience. These or audiences, and maybe even your future target audiences. These are the specific services you offer, or products you offer. This is what makes you different, and that those pieces together really provide a platform for talking about your business and what you do with confidence. And so while you may come back to make modifications as things change or as you pivot over time, you kind of the best way I have to talk about is really kind of from an experience standpoint. You're going through that experience, you're taking the time to do that, and you have that clarity, which is, so often we're responding as startup owners, business owners. If we're working with different mentors, we may be regularly responding to, there's that person said I should do this person said I should do that, or that investor really wants to see this. It can be easy to start to kind of tack in new directions to try to answer or look at sort of the bright, shiny suggestion in front of you. And that can really take you off course. And this is one of those things that really provides a touch point that you can keep coming back to again and again, and that grounding component.
That makes a lot of sense. I tell you what, let me, I have one more question, but I want to queue up for anyone else that'd like to ask. Just raise your digital hand in just a second, and we'll take some questions from the audience. And if you don't have questions and you have this branding expert right here, I mean, let me tell you guys, come on, some of y'all's brands, they need work. So you should take advantage of this while we have Christia here. We will post, by the way, let me make sure I mention this, and then we'll mention it again specifically about in a little bit. I've got a slide where we're going to post this. We're going to post Christia's presentation into the Venture Outfitter channel on the community.techranch.com website, there is a whole channel just for the VO Weekly. And I'm going to ask her that for some of the follow-up questions and stuff like that, so you don't swamp her, like if she was to release her email address, I'm going to say, instead of doing that, to follow that one thread, and we'll ask her for just a couple of days to follow that thread and answer questions there as well. But try to get them in before the end of the program, if all possible. So my question back to you, Christia, is we get something started, maybe we get a small round of funding, and we're going to that next stage, and we recognize that the brand needs some polish. But we don't have necessarily the funding or the maybe not a lot of time even to actually do the polish that's needed. What do you have any strategies for helping people level up? I mean, I come from the house of Steve Jobs, which is the cathartic rewrite. I remember hearing him tell the story about the beautiful thing about when people used to write books by typing. The best part about it was, versus the editor, is that the best part about it is that you were going through and the author would do the cathartic rewrite, stop everything, and then type again, right? Whereas, and so I hear the little head, voice in my head that represents him saying, dude, you should always just figure out how to fix it and fix it right. But the truth is, a lot of times as we're building these companies, we have to figure out how to do things incrementally. Any insight about how someone should do that? What comes to mind, like on how to incrementally fix the pieces that we're talking about?
Yeah, I think this is I think if you were to use the brand positioning as a template, perhaps not even writing it out in that way, but those other pieces, which are understanding if you're able to refer back to the presentation once it's posted, it's that even just in bullet point form, really knowing, okay, audience, their pain points, my core products and services, what makes me unique, the benefits from working for me, like why am I awesome?
Yeah.
Well, those 5 pieces are, if you have those guiding principles, then you can work them sort of into things as you are developing those other pieces, and over time, eventually everything will come into alignment. It's not the most ideal way to work, but often it is a matter of how we wear so many different hats. Stopping to do this work means other work doesn't get done. But if at least those things are clarified in one place where not only you can reference them, but everyone else on your team can reference them, it's a reminder, and also provides an opportunity to question for sure, is this how we do this? Is this really what we're saying? And then sort of lock it down like a script at some point in time and consider it done until such time that it really you've discovered, oh, your audience is different than you thought they were, or you're going to focus on a different product or service because you discovered a need that you didn't know about.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's interesting to think about, and I hear you that especially the best way is to kind of go through that cathartic rewrite process. But I see how your template can be used as a launch pad for getting there. You're saying, get the basics here, stop everything, get the basics here, and then go from there. It looks like we have a question from Timothy Patton. Timothy, why don't you join us really quick?
Okay. All right, great. I'm actually doing this right now, right? So, I mean, today I am 3 days late on deciding on a name, right? And we're having a little bit of problem. Like, so we've got a small team, and we're all like, yeah, the name's okay. And then of course I'm like pulling it out to my friends, and none of them like it. So we've just done this over and over and over. And now, my ops lady is like, come on, man, we need a name so I can start doing my stuff, right?
Right.
I'm like, hold on, I got a bunch of stuff on my plate. So, what is your take on finding a name? I mean, should I be listening to kind of our small team more than I'm listening to my 30 friends that are like business owners and marketing people? Because they're shooting down everything I said out there. Like those names are just terrible. Right?
Yeah. Right.
And it's a solar company, so anything with the name energy in it, anything with the name power in it, like the URL's gone.
Yeah.
I used to have 200 URLs I just didn't pay, and now they're worth about $70,000 a piece, literally. I had tons, right? Back when Citizenry, Kevin, I had a bunch of them. So Krista, what is your kind of take on that? I mean, is it public opinion? Is it like internal, unanimous decision? Like what direction do you lean?
So I think for starters, I would ask you if you to maybe start with your clarifier. That was the piece of the puzzle that I said a lot of people forget about, which is it's that's piece that is like dentist. What is it that you are? What is that? We are. What kind of solar technology company are you? What can you clarify that? Because that may also give more information about what your name should be. Should pieces of that be in your name or not in your name? But when it comes to the brand name piece, obviously research is a key component. You don't want to be using you can't use names that are already out there. You want to be distinctive. And I think in working through this with people, I usually counsel them to get other feedback, but that at some point in time, if they are the CEO or founder, to say it is now my choice. Thank you very much. I appreciate all of the feedback. I've taken it into consideration, and we can't make a decision and move forward in consideration of everyone's feedback. So now I will take this and decide. The committee is useful to a point, but I think I know the struggle of coming up with something unique because it seems like everything else is taken. I have also seen that in the process of writing this out and all these pieces about what you do, often and writing down the piece that I didn't cover, which was the core brand vocabulary, all of the words associated with your company, and with sort of also who you are. If you're the founder, what are the things that are important to you, your core values, and seeing if there are things that come out of that, because those are where the less obvious solutions often arise, something that you wouldn't have imagined would suit. And that's also an important piece of it, particularly when these are companies that you're part of day in and day out. Your own personal emotional connection to that name is important. And it can make you, we try to imagine that that's not really important, but you're going to say that name all the time. You're going to wear it on your shirt and your hat and dream about it. So there should be something in that name that you connect with personally, if at all possible, or that feels meaningful to you in some way.
Yeah. I just feel like I'm kind of a ready, fire, aim guy, right? And so I don't really care what the name is. I just want to get going. I feel like that if we do a good job, we could build meaning behind that name, right? Like Apple or whatever, right? And so it needs to convey something, right? Okay.
One thing you can do, Timothy, one thing you can do, and for anyone that's in the community, a great way of doing that, move fast and break things, but leverage, lots of minds to do so. Post a thread in the request channel in the community. Okay. Now we haven't moved everyone over from Mighty Networks and from Slack yet. So there's literally hundreds of people that are about to be invited into the new community site. I wanted to make sure that that the alpha group like this, we have a very small group right now. But that being said, we're still getting enough interactions that you might just throw something out there and get a bunch of spins on it as well. That's another way that everyone here can use the community. Hey, I'm thinking about the following thing, especially if you don't mind a little bit of exposure on to get more evolution cycles in a very short period of time. So
Yeah,
take
if you could
advantage
show
of the
me how to
community
do
that way.
that. I would love that. I mean, I don't mind the exposure, right? I mean, that's not a problem, but I do have a meeting about $120 million project in 4 hours and I don't have a name. Right.
Hey, that's a great problem to solve.
Wait,
I know a branding consultant available to you that if you're working on a really big deal, I bet you she's available.
Yeah, no, that'd be fine. You know, Chris, I think we've worked together in the past, like have you been in Austin a long time?
25 years.
Like a long time ago,
Yeah.
right? Like a long time ago, like,
It's possible.
right? Did you say you speak French?
Un petit peu.
Yes, we did, right? Okay, I don't know.
We'll figure it out.
Like 20 years ago, something like that.
It's
Yeah, I'm a lot taller now.
Well, let's do this. We have one of the hands, and this will probably be our last question, given the time and all that sort of stuff. But thank you, Timothy. Melvin, why don't you come online, and we'll get you to please ask your question as well. Timothy, good luck with the $120 million deal. That's actually cool.
Yeah.
I love hearing
Melvin,
that.
what's on your mind?
Poetry. So we don't have time in this venue right now, but in the channel on the community, can we talk about poetry over there, please?
Absolutely. I'm always down for talking about poetry.
Yeah,
Okay.
buy a copy of her book. I'll show you my copy.
Right.
I'm convinced that so I actually have her book, a book of Rumi poetry, and then I'm gonna forget the third book over there. The guy who wrote the book about I never saw a little bird that complained. I forget his name, but so I have 3 books of poetry: Rumi, Hoffman, and the third person who I'm forgetting right this second. Grab a copy. It's worthwhile, and I've gotten to watch her share her poetry on Facebook for quite a while. It's inspirational because it's vulnerable, and it also finds the way through. Like the acceleration poem that she shared earlier was really beautiful, very touching. Touching, especially in the context of entrepreneurship. So, well, Christia, thank you for your time today. It's great to have you in the community, and thank you for the insight. I know that I myself am going to go to take the PDF that we're going to post into that area. Actually, I already have it. She sent it to me a few days ago, but now I understand it in a different way than when I read it through it. So I'm going to download that. I'm going to make a little template, and I will start using that myself to fix, because I know that I think that Tech Ranch has a lot of the right elements, but then there's some stuff that we don't articulate, like on our About page. I'm embarrassed, but on our About page right now, there's stuff that you just reminded me as I was kind of looking at it. I'm like, oh, wait, that's not us. And so thank you for the insight. Thank you for your insight and your sensitivity to these type of things, as well as sharing your insight today.
Absolutely. Thanks for the opportunity to do so, Kevin. I appreciate it.
Yeah, Christia will be involved in the Tech Ranch, like you heard a while ago. She received one of the delegations from France. A few of the other delegations. We got high kudos that came back to me from the organizers. She managed one of the tables of entrepreneurs from the south of France. I managed the other table. And there's definitely a lot of interest, because a lot of times when these companies come to the United States, they need to, a lot of them don't actually have the polish that like the U.S. market kind of forces us to get, whether you're starting your company here or you're starting someplace else. So thank you, Christia. What we'll do is, just in noticing the time, we're going to go ahead and wrap up. But part of what I want to make sure I share is inside of the community.techranch.com, you see here, there's going to be an area called the VO Weekly. It's already had some traffic. We haven't been posting all of the events here, but since there's always a little bit of follow-on that wants to happen, sometimes it's been happening in the WhatsApp group, sometimes it's been happening in my email box. The appropriate place for that will be in this channel. And I will ask I'll ask Christia for just a few days, like if you have a follow-on question. She's not fair game for forever because this is what she does for work, and she deserves to build her company as like any of us do. So don't abuse her. But if you have some follow-on questions, you can do that, and we'll do that in the community site. There will be Jello. Usually it takes a little bit of time to spool the videos into YouTube. And so Jello will make a space there for this video. And then we'll add the template pretty quick so that you can grab it pretty quick. But then as we get the video up and all that sort of stuff, we'll build out that post just a little bit more. But it'll be under the Start Here area via weekly. And if you are not in the community yet and you want to be, make sure you reach out to Jello or myself about that. We're going to have a more formal way of bringing people involved. One of the other ways of getting involved in the Tech Ranch, if you want to get on the email list, the mentor list, the country manager list, and then by next week, there will be a pathway into the community. It'll be an approval process. There's no charge for being involved in the community. There are requirements. Those will be posted there. The main idea is we want to build back up the rich community that we had, prior to COVID, about helping each other build our businesses out and drive that forward. So with regards to today, I will click to our last slide and say, we've got a lot of activities happening in the next few weeks. Obviously, the push that Tech Ranch is on is to really focus in on what's happening in the new year. We're already, my head is in January. Actually, my head is in, Q2 of 2023. To figure out what are the things that we have to lay down into the process of that. We will have a VO program for those of all that are in the United States, and you're saying, hey, what about Thanksgiving? Probably I won't be on site, but we will have a VO call then. And then next week, which is the week before, we're going to do some follow-up. I think the thing that we're going to focus on is goal setting, in a process that I learned about goal setting and preparing the mind for the new year that usually starts around Thanksgiving, and you drive it all the way into the new year. And it's really interesting, what comes out of that. So for Thanksgiving, though, whether you're in this country or some other country, the thing that I'd actually like to collect is stories of gratitude. Whether you're celebrating Thanksgiving or you don't celebrate Thanksgiving, we all should have gratitude. If you have a story to share about that, let me know. I'd like to make sure that we create space for that. And then we'll have three more VO weeklies. There's a good chance we'll skip the last week of the year. Last year we didn't, and I kind of liked it anyway because I miss you guys. But we'll decide that in the coming weeks. All right. Well, with that, it's always my honor to be a part of a community of entrepreneurs that are driven by vision and values. Thank you to Christia for your work. That was really informative. Let's go change the world for the better together. Y'all take care.